Hello and welcome back, Season 3, Episode 6, Ecuador Insider Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Jesse Bayer, Ryan Pemberton, Carl Marsan, the podcast face of Abundant Living Ecuador. Again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Get the business of the day out of the way. If you could help us out, give us a like, give us a share, give us, hit the bell. Subscribe. All that good stuff. We greatly appreciate it. We do try to pump out a lot of content and really try to give you guys on the ground info of life and business and give you a contextual feel, here of life in Ecuador. And we really appreciate, any of those things you can do for us. So again, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your attention. Okay, we have kind of a myriad of topics today. We were just kind of frantically putting this together. First, let's say, we're up here, we're in Vilcabamba, so that's the valley behind us there. We're sort of coming at it, not from from a little bit different angle as last week. So we're sort of on the west side of the valley here today. Last week, we were kind of on the south side of the valley. We were looking sort of north behind us. Today we're looking mostly east. Am I getting all that right? I think so.
South.
Southeast. Southeast. Yeah. Because the Orient is that way. Maybe it's a little that way. So a little bit different shot of the valley. This property is for sale. It's a beautiful piece of land. It is 6 hectares. Why don't I let you cover it real quick? Tell us about the property.
Yeah, sure. 6 hectares. It's got a little cabin on it made of tapia, rammed earth, super artsy, and there are about 4 or 5 other pre-made lots, so you can build on these lots. Or we're discussing with the municipality as to whether or not it can be subdivided. So if you wanted to buy it for an investment, you could purchase it and then subdivide it and sell off the lots to get back some of your investment. So that's this property. It's beautiful views, some of the best in town.
Yeah, we're just a couple minutes outside of town. So we're trying to record these episodes, from angles where you can kind of get a look at the valley. This is definitely a great shot of the valley today. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a frequently asked questions episode, a little bit of some stuff that we want to talk about. And so we're going to kind of go all over the map today. We'll talk a little bit about rental income. We'll talk a little bit about who can buy property in Ecuador. We're going to talk about driver's licenses and driving cars in Ecuador and banking and a few other topics. So thanks again for being with us, and let's do it. So starting out, people want to know, can we buy property in Ecuador without a visa? And the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that, Ecuador makes doing just about everything here as a foreigner really, really easy. So as a foreigner, you have full rights in Ecuador prior to your visa to buy property, sell property, open a business, operate through a corporation, open an entity, legal entity, etc. So it's really, Ecuador is not one of the easiest countries in the world to do business in. It's getting easier and easier. We have a very business-friendly president at the moment. But in certain ways, they make it very easy. And so, that's something that's very nice here. And absolutely, you can buy and sell property with a visa, without a visa, as a resident, as a non-resident. It makes, as a corporate entity, as a nonprofit. I mean, there's really no limits there at all as to what you can do. Anything to add to that, guys?
Well, I would just add that if you come into Ecuador, you get automatically a 3 months tourist visa. So if you're coming in, you're getting a tourist visa, and you can get a 3 months extension. So it's very easy to be here for 6 months, without having to apply for anything as you're coming in here. And that gives you plenty of time to find a property that you're looking for. But if you want to buy sight unseen, from there, that can also be done basically without a visa.
Again, yeah, just with your passport, so you don't need the visa. You can make a purchase of land here, which will qualify you for the investor visa. And the neat thing about that right now is you're able to travel to and from the country as much as you'd like in the first 2 years. And that we've covered on other podcasts, but it's huge. If you want to make the investment, but you're not sure you can move here just yet, and you want to make the move to buy something now before prices continue to rise, it is a good investment. and you can always renew that temporary visa after the 2-year period and go for another 2 years, again being able to travel to and from Ecuador as much as you'd like.
And just on that topic, I really do. I've nailed the market here for about 6 or 7 years, as far as, or 8 years. I don't know. I've been here 9 years, as far as what's going to happen price action wise. And my opinion is that we're absolutely going to be continuing to rise here price wise into the foreseeable future. There's lots of reasons for that, not the least of which is the value proposition that Ecuador has to offer of safety and great culture and great climate and the soil and the growing season and so on and so forth. That value proposition is really, its time has come in the world, and it's starting to be recognized internationally in concert with some of the weirdness going on in the world as well. And then just great conditions here politically, the political environment, the economic environment, right, are very good here right now. So it's kind of a confluence of events. It would be surprising to me if prices don't continue to increase into the foreseeable future. Yeah. So it's, if you are 2 years out, 5 years out type of thing, my recommendation that I would give to my friends and my family would be, secure something now. I was not saying this, 7 years ago because I was concerned about, what's going to happen economically. That proved correct. I know I've been telling these guys for a couple of years, hey, I think we're headed into some very good times here. We're really into that now, the beginning of it still, but we're absolutely in that now. And so yeah, just to add to that. Another thing too. So we're talking a little bit about visas. We're going to be interviewing 2 different visa specialists coming up on the channel. So look for that over the next, should be published within like 2 weeks of when this podcast comes out. So look for that. We'll have an in-depth interview with visa attorneys who will be giving all of the updates to the new changes, because they just, within the last like 3 days or something, they just announced a whole bunch of sweeping changes to the visa laws. None of it is really bad news. There's some increases in the minimum amounts that you have to earn to qualify, but in general it does not look to me to be anything too terrible at all, and we'll be breaking that all down on the channel coming up. Okay, that sort of leads into banking a little bit. We get questions a lot about, banking in Ecuador, and that's another thing that, I don't know, there's a lot of paperwork involved, but in general they make it really easy here. Again, you can bank as a foreigner. There's no restrictions to opening and closing bank accounts, doing financial transactions as a foreigner. You don't even have to be in the country, right? We've done that for clients a million times through a power of attorney. We can open an account on somebody's behalf. Anybody can. So you can open a bank, and we had a question about customer service, and in my opinion, the customer service here is. It's not a cut it's not a cut above in the States. It's many levels above.
Massively above.
Yeah, what I was used to in the States. You really get treated well here by your banker at the bank. They're, very helpful, very polite. And it kind of goes into the cultural stuff too. You end up texting back and forth with people at the bank constantly. I have multiple friends. Well, they become friends. They didn't start out as friends, but multiple people at the bank who I have their WhatsApp. Everybody here uses WhatsApp. And that's how I get all my banking done. And they can even do favors for you that are not allowed, no problem. Like I had a situation recently where we had to open a company account, and we had some pressure to do so because the client was trying to send us money and didn't want to send it to a personal account and blah, blah, blah. And so we had to get this account opened like that day type of thing. I'm on the coast. Ryan's in Vilcabamba. We both need to sign some document. I'm texting my friend at the bank like, hey, can you help me out with this? Sure, no problem. We'll open the account. You'll sign when you get back. Yeah. Great. Like same day, done. Right. Bank account's open, official, legal, and stuff like that goes on all the time.
Yesterday I was at a closing, and we get to the notary, and the seller signed, and then it was time for the buyer to sign. But then she's like, well, wait a second. I want to see the cashier's check, because the seller was very apprehensive, like somehow she was going to get ripped off or something like that. So we show her the check, and it's not a check she's used to. So she's saying, no, this isn't going to work. We've got to walk to the bank. And that's on the other side of town. I don't want to walk to the bank. That's going to take another hour and a half, 2 hours of my day. So I call the bank rep. that I have a relationship with me, and she has a call with everybody, the notary guy and the seller and we hash it out. She explains that it is like cash, and so accept it. And there she actually had the clarification, and we moved forward, didn't have to leave the notary agent's office. So, very helpful for sure. We'll answer your call. It's awesome.
Yeah, and this might sound a little odd, but when I first got here, I didn't know this, so I would wait in line downstairs at the bank until I get, sometimes there's a long line of like 20, 30, 40 people waiting in line on the street. And I found out after a while that as foreigners here, we are sort of automatically VIP, at least at the bank that we're banking at, which is Banco de Loja. And I don't know if that changed over time or whatever, but they see that, foreigners are bringing in money, they're good customers. So now, instead of waiting in line, you just go to the second floor and you go in front of everybody, and and they help you out like right away. So
you're not going in front of everybody. You're just going to somebody who's really not doing too much, and then
Right.
they can help you out directly.
That's basically exactly. So we can help you open a bank account. We have someone at the company, an agent in Loja. We also have attorneys that can help you open bank accounts, and you automatically become a VIP customer at Banco de Loja.
Yeah.
No, 100%, and that really speaks to the culture too, right? It's like everything here is through relationships. So I've told this story before. I won't retell the whole thing, but when I first got to Ecuador, I didn't know anybody. I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't get a bank account opened. I literally couldn't accomplish anything. Now, I didn't speak Spanish at all, so that had something to do with it. And I was trying to do it on my own, and I didn't know anybody. And it was in Quito. It's a big city, so on and so forth. Over the years, as I built relationships and so on, life becomes so easy. And the nice thing about, helping clients over the years is that, we're able to just sort of plug them right into those connections. So they don't have to spend, the 2 to 3 years that I spent, right, building all those relationships and learning the language to first learning the language to then build the relationship and all those sorts of things. We just can say, hey, this is such and so, this is such and so. And, now they have the relationship, and now they can text on WhatsApp and get done whatever they need to get done. And, that's one of the really nice things about the culture here. It's definitely a double-edged sword because it is hard to get things done without those relationships. But when you have them, life is so much easier. All the rules don't apply. You can get your business done with relative ease as long as they know you and you know them. It's probably the way things were in the States, 50 years ago or 80 years ago or something.
And awesome, right? If you want to do business with us, we're gonna get you synced up with all these people that we have connections with, so you'll be able to have this same thing.
Of course. Real quick, the banks, when I first got here, there was no online banking, barely. It was very, very difficult. I mean, at least it was very not user-friendly, whatever they came up with. Now with Banco de Loja, I have an app on my phone. It's online banking. I can make a transfer in a minute or less. It's very user-friendly, at least I find. You do have to speak Spanish. It's only in Spanish as of now, the online banking, but it's very good.
We should get a little promo money here from Banco de Loja. The amount of times we mention them, but no, they are a really nice local bank. Did you want to say something?
Well, we can contact them before we publish this and see
what we can get out of them.
An affiliate link in the description below. Set up an account with them, and you get a little kickback or something.
No, it's funny. I opened so many accounts with them over the years that it did get to the point where they were giving me Christmas gifts and giving me all kinds of stuff, but it did get to the point where I'm thinking I could probably negotiate something with these guys. Anyhow. So let's see. So banking, that brings us, I guess, a little bit into taxes. So we get questions on real estate taxes.
Taxes.
Right. Right. So the simple answer in Ecuador on taxes, as far as real estate taxes, and before I say that, let's I guess take the broader picture on taxes for a second. So Ecuador has a pretty similar tax system to much of the world. When you're talking about income tax, corporate tax, the corporate tax rate, if I'm not mistaken, is 22%. The income tax rate is a graduating, a progressive scale, just like it is in most of the world. You're taxed at zero up into a certain amount, and then it goes up from there. I've noticed over the years doing taxes here, there are a lot of ways to pay very little taxes, as far as income and corporate tax and business tax. So it's not a super onerous tax structure. It's a much simpler system than in the States. The tax code is this thick. It's not 57 volumes of tax code like it is back home. It's a pretty straightforward system. They do have a 12% value added tax currently, which was a shock coming from the States, but I understand is actually very low compared to Europe and other places. And then there's all kinds of offsets against that if you're running a business. So it's I find it to be not a super burdensome tax structure in general. Our questions are more around real estate taxes, and real estate taxes at this point in time, and since I've gotten here, they haven't changed, are uniquely low. So you pay 0.1% of the assessed value annually. And what that comes out to is on $100,000 of tax assessed value, which generally speaking is much lower than market value, you're paying $100 annually per year. So even if you have a property assessed at $1 million, which I've only seen maybe once or twice in all my years here, you'd be paying $1,000 a year in property taxes. So for all intents and purposes, there are none. I mean, many people are spending $5, $20, $30 a year.
Standard is what I see is $30 to $50.
Right.
So a year. This is crazy low. So to be able to buy property here to use in the future is not a bad investment. You're not paying a ton of taxes annually if you're not going to use it. It's appreciating, and you don't pay very much in taxes, so it's a good value.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that sort of leads into, and we're not going to make this a show on investing. We should absolutely do a show on that soon. But, just sort of in the vein of taxes and sort of rental income versus cost of construction and cost of ownership and so on and so forth. Some of the, rents here tend to be low. And so when you're running numbers, your ratio of your rent roll to price, or your multiple of how many times rent roll and so on and so forth, are not always as good as where you're coming from, but your carrying costs are so much lower. Almost nobody has insurance here, so that's you basically are taking that out, and even if you choose to hold insurance, it's very, very inexpensive. Taxes are essentially zero. Different types of rental income also are not taxed either, like the income itself. So there is some different, there's some changes in that calculus, in those calculations, that actually make that an interesting business, even with rents being as low as they are. Okay, let's jump into cars and transportation. I guess we'll probably cover transportation more broadly. But we get questions about driving in Ecuador, getting a driver's license, and again, let's make it a broader subject about just sort of getting around Ecuador.
Buying a car.
Buying a car, absolutely.
Can you bring a car into Ecuador in a shipping container? No, you can't as an expat. Only if you are born here, a citizen, have moved away for a significant period of time, and are returning, can you bring a vehicle into the country.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, good. So we can't bring a car in. Let's start with getting into the country. So what's that like? How do I get here?
You hop on a boat. And you
Is it a canoe?
You hop on a canoe, right, with a couple.
They still
friends.
do canoes, right?
Yeah, I think they do canoes down
yeah.
here. Yeah, no, you get on a plane, right? You fly from anywhere in the world to either Quito or Guayaquil, the two international airports, and you'll take a domestic flight from one of those two spots to Loja, or you can take a van shuttle services from Guayaquil to Loja. I don't recommend taking a shuttle service from Quito to Loja or Vilcabamba, right? I would fly on Aero Regional, so Aero Regional Airlines, and then I heard, is it Latam? Latam, that's going to be flying to Loja as well. And so, yeah, that's how you would get here.
And that stuff changes all the time. So, for many years, there was 2 flights a day on a now defunct government airline. There was 2 flights a day. They were terrible. There were 2 flights a day, Quito to Loja, and 2 flights a day, Loja to Quito, and 2 flights a day, same thing, Guayaquil and Loja. They are not running as often now. It's now private airlines, which is much better, but it's not running as often, and it changes all the time, particularly with everything that's going on, with the COVID and so on and so forth. They shut down for a while, and now they're operating. But the schedules continue to change on that. So check, you'll have to check when this comes out. It'll be one way, and 6 weeks it could be a little bit different. So
And I have been studying that. They have been adding flights. So they haven't been taking any away. So it is only improving over the last 6 to 8 months. And I think that we can probably expect that to continue. Ecuador is, I guess, vowing to throw a bunch of money into tourism here.
yeah, and they have already
They
as
have
well. Yeah.
and will continue. So we can expect to see the airlines getting increased volumes and increasing or adding flights. So, and I will say one more thing. Aero Regional has some of the best customer service I have ever experienced on any airline ever. They're awesome. They
Nice.
actually really care, which is complete opposite than Tommy back in the day.
I mean, it's sort of similar to your banking experience, right? It's like that's not uncommon here to have
Yeah.
good personal interactions, even with large companies.
Right.
So point is, it's easy to get here. In the future, they're going to have a massive expansion of the Manta Airport, and that will become an international airport as well. Cuenca has a few international flights, very few. I think basically the Galapagos. I'm not sure if there's others. But there are, there is a lot of ways to get here. There's many flights every day from all over the world into Quito and Guayaquil, so certainly not difficult to get here. And then, Ryan covered the rest. You can also take a bus, of course, from those airports. Also something I wouldn't highly recommend just because it's slow and uncomfortable, but it's perfectly safe and very inexpensive and so on and so forth. Okay, now I'm in country. Again, you mentioned van service, so that runs more or less, well, I can't say all over the country, but it runs to all the large cities, certainly, and it'll drop you anywhere in between. The buses in Ecuador, again, not something I've really ever done, but buses, lots of people do it, and the buses in Ecuador are phenomenal. I mean, they're a common way to travel, and therefore they have, lots of service to everywhere all the time. So it's very easy to get a bus to anywhere you're going, including tiny little towns that are barely on the map. There's probably even more than one bus a day that goes there. So that's an option. There's taxis, of course, and car services. That's no problem anywhere in the country. You can hire somebody to drive you anywhere you're going. Obviously, that's a little bit more expensive. And then there are the regional flights that fly again to all the large cities. And then beyond that, we get into, buying your car, right? So go ahead.
There's also car rentals.
Oh,
I've had a
please.
few clients, who've helped rent cars. If you feel adventurous, the Google Maps is not that great for some roads here,
Yeah.
but the major roads, it's okay.
It's gotten a lot better. I mean,
it's gotten a lot
it's
better,
pretty
for sure.
good at this point.
But what you can't find is decent car rental agencies in Loja. You really are left with Guayaquil or Quito. I don't recommend driving from Quito down south, so you'd want to fly into Guayaquil, and that's a beautiful 8-hour drive from Guayaquil to Vilcabamba, in which I've driven before.
I actually have a good recommendation for car rental in Loja. I've had a few clients now renting cars there.
Yeah? No?
Yeah.
All right. Well, great.
And there's also
Reach out to Carl.
there's also like friends I know too who rent cars privately in Loja, which is great because you don't have to deal with all the insurance and all the deposits and all that sort of stuff. What Ryan's talking about is there's the large car rental
Right.
companies are not in
There's
in
no
Loja.
Alamo here.
There's no Alamo. There's no Avis.
Alamo.
There's no any of those. But you can rent a car here either through a personal contact, which we can help you with, or apparently I know some agencies, but
Yeah.
apparently you know a good one because I'm with you. The ones I've come across in the past sucked.
The ones that I've got, they can actually meet you at the airport and give you the
nice.
keys right there. Give you the car, bring you the car at the airport in
Dang,
Capamayo.
Mike loves service.
Yeah.
It brings me right back to like those commercials in the 90s, like Enterprise, we pick you up.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think it's like between $50 to $75 a day. That's sort of like the going rate, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, you can find stuff for 40, even 30, like through friends if they're a little bit older cars, not as nice.
Okay.
But yeah, 40, 50, 60, 70, yeah, that tends to be more the range, I would agree. Okay, let's say I want to buy a car, guys. New car, used car, what are your thoughts?
I can tell you what I've done.
Used car.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying a lot more for a new car, but used cars don't lose a lot of value. So, used cars are also kind of expensive in Ecuador. I can say, I'll just real quick for myself, I've owned 4 vehicles now, 4 cars here in Ecuador. I've owned 3 motorcycles, and I bought everything used. And what I would do, and I can help you with that if you are interested, if we were working together, I would find people that are selling used cars on Facebook Marketplace, actually, because that's where a lot of people publish used vehicles and things like this, and then meet them at a trustworthy mechanic of mine in Loja. I have a few now. I meet the people selling the cars there, and I do a total inspection. The guy charges me between $10 to $20 a car, and we'll do like a fully in-depth inspection, compression of all the pistons, the cylinders, look at for all the problems, and then knowing what the problems and how much it's going to cost to fix them, you can then negotiate, and try to get a good deal. And I've done that every time, and I've had really good luck. Actually, I've only bought cars that were actually in good shape through doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And I've had good experience buying cars here. So I've purchased 2 cars now. But what I found is that cars in the $12,000 to $14,000 range, if you can get a good one with decent kilometers, low enough, like 100,000 kilometers ish, then you could drive it for quite a long period of time, over a couple of years, and then sell it for the same price. Now, this is a car like a Toyota RAV4 like I bought, like a car that's somewhat sought after for expats and that are reliable and have a good reputation, like that one. So those cars, they maintain their value and they don't really depreciate. But if you buy a new car, there's a couple factors. So if you buy a new car that's over $30,000, you get taxed heavily. And if you get a car under $30,000, $29,900 out the door, then you don't pay as much in taxes. So there's all these Chinese manufacturers that are coming into the market here and selling cars and trucks under $30,000.
Right.
So a lot of people are buying these new vehicles, but I don't know. I'm uncertain what the depreciation will be on that.
Yeah.
So from a strict investment standpoint, I think that the $12,000 to $14,000 car that you have Carl's mechanic look over, give you the thumbs up, then it holds its value and you're not going to lose as much on it. So it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. Okay, so a $14,000 2007 RAV4 is $14,000, and in the States it's like $7,000. 6,500.
Your buddy gives it to you. I don't think it's even that much. I don't think.
RAV4,
2007? I think it's free in the States.
You guys tell me a 2007 RAV4. I mean, I still think that it's a nice car. You guys have been in my car. Leather seats.
No, nothing wrong with the car, but in the States.
But listen, it's like more than double the price here. But again, you don't find cars really that are that reliable for under $7,000. So
yeah, I mean, you can't find a really cheap car here. Like in Canada or in the States, I know you can buy cars for $1,000, $500,
sure.
Old cars, because price of labor to fix the car is so high that it's not even worth it to get it fixed.
Exactly.
Whereas here, the labor is so much less. Parts are probably equal value,
More or less,
depending on the brand.
Depending on the brand.
Popular one here.
So you can get, like, cars last forever here, basically. You still see these old 1980, 1970, 1960 cars driving around because they just fix them up. They continuously repair them. So yeah, that's why used cars don't lose a lot of value. And also the reason why cars are more expensive is because import taxes are so high in Ecuador that gives a huge premium already for any new car coming in the country. They're being sold at 30-40% higher just from the import tax, right? The tariffs.
Well, a lot of that has come down. So there's a couple of things to point out. So first of all, Ecuador has restrictions on the number of cars that you can import that are not new. And so that keeps the used car market also very expensive because there's just a limited supply. You used to be able to bring them in, no problem. You can't anymore, and so there's a limited supply. In addition to what Carl mentioned, which is absolutely, in my opinion, correct, it keeps the used car market very strong, and as Ryan pointed out, there's very little depreciation. What we're used to back home, this rapidly depreciating asset, is not the case here. It certainly depreciates over time, but at a much slower rate. I've bought a number of cars here as well, used, new, both. You don't have the same depreciation on new cars either. Some cars here do have very high import taxes that you wouldn't want probably to buy new unless you just really need that car. I mean, just to give you an example, a luxury car, right, that in the States would be maybe $120,000. You could be paying $250,000 for that here, with all of the taxes that are on top of it, and then you're gonna have a very hard time getting parts. You're gonna, not very hard time, but you're gonna have to import all your parts when things go wrong. Excuse me. So that's, those kinds of things would be a hassle here. But let's say a Chevy or a Hyundai or a Kia or a Ford, or some of the car companies that are common here, that lots of Toyota, lots of people drive those cars. The new cars, in my opinion, are not a terrible deal. They are a bit more expensive than the States, for sure, but again, they hold their value much better. And you have the benefits of having a new car, which is nice. You do have the taxes Ryan mentioned, so you do pay basically an annual cost, right, to own that car until it depreciates a bit. So there's some carrying costs that you wouldn't have back home. So yeah, those are kind of some of the parameters. I think really it comes down to preference at the end of the day. Do you want the value? I agree with Ryan. I think that's probably the sweet spot for value in the used car market. Do you just need something new? There's lots of people like that, right? They want a new car and that's it, and they'll do what they have to do to get it. Where we live, I think diesels are really nice. The price of gas now fluctuates. It didn't for a long time, so it is getting a little bit more expensive. And the diesel engines are they're so efficient and they're so powerful. You get that torque, and we're here in the mountains, obviously. I think the diesel's a nice buy. But in general, my advice would be, buy something that lots of people have here, so that there's lots of parts.
Exactly.
There's lots of availability of parts. The mechanics know how to work on it. And the labor here, as Carl mentioned, is so cheap. It's also phenomenal, right? So everybody, the skill here of mechanics are amazing, and the costs are so low. It's mind-boggling. I mean, just to give you a quick anecdote that sort of fits into cost and culture and cars, I had a flat tire about couple of months ago in Loja, and I was kind of dressed nice, and it was a very hot day. And I didn't want to change the flat because I'm a bougie and I didn't want to do it. and I'm like I'm gonna be sweating and down on the ground, and like I'm gonna sweat through my shirt, and like I don't want to change the flat tire. So I text my buddy and I'm like, hey, can you send me, can you send me a the vulcanizador, like what are they, like a tire guy, a tire repair shop guy, right? Can you send me one who can change my flat tire? 5 minutes later, all right, I'm exaggerating. 10 minutes later, there's a guy there changing my flat. He changes, he puts on the emergency. I follow him back to his shop, and I ended up getting out of there for like under $10. I think that was with a tip, which no one does here, but I think I think it was like I had to pay $2 for the taxi that he took, and then $2 for him to change the tire, and then like $2 to fix the spare or fix the original tire. And I think I gave him $2 just for fun. So something like that. Right, and so this is this labor, right, is that inexpensive. The skills are like that, no problem. And it kind of makes life easy in a certain way.
Just wanted to back up real quick, Carl. The cost for a $14,000 car annually is around $350. So that would be a carrying cost, for example. I didn't know if you guys wanted to know.
Sure, the matriculate.
And then also gas prices. Where are they at right now? So diesel is
$185.
Is $185?
Yeah.
It used to be $1.03 for like years.
Yeah.
And gasoline is there's two different types of gasoline. There's Supreme or Super, and the Eco País, which is some type of regular. Yeah. It's $2.55 a gallon.
$2.55 a gallon.
Which the
Eco.
The Eco, wow, it's
and
gone up
partially subsidized. So they're not going to raise that, but starting soon they're going to raise the premium because of oil prices going up. They're not going to raise Eco, but they're going to raise the premium to like over $3 something.
It's already
$3.18, I think, is what they're going to raise that. Supreme.
Okay, I don't know how much that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still much less than the U.S. and Canada. I hear stuff like $6 to $8 a gallon.
California maybe. LA or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, again, I think the diesel makes a lot of sense in this area because the diesel was what'd you say, 185?
185. I'm pretty sure it's 185.
Yeah, something like that. And it was $1 for forever. But I mean, you're filling up a diesel tank, you know, if you drive it a lot, once a week, once every 2 weeks. So anyhow, so yeah, that's probably covers that, right? And Ryan mentioned the matricula, you know, the sort of the registration. You have an annual registration cost, which is higher than what you're used to, or what I'm used to from back home, and that goes up based on the value of the car.
Car insurance.
Ah, yeah, that's a great one. You want to cover it?
I mean, my understanding is that there's no such a thing. You don't have car insurance.
Oh, no, sure there is.
It comes with the matricula.
It's such a thing. It's just not required.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
okay.
Legal.
Okay, yeah.
Well, hold on. Let's clarify that. So there's what's called SOAT, which I have no idea what that stands for, but there's like a standard government insurance that everybody has as part of the matricula. I don't know really what that does or how it works. It's a very minimal thing that I don't know. If you want private insurance, it absolutely exists. If you finance a car, you have to get it. People can choose to get it or not. It is legally not required, certainly, and it's very cheap. So you know, on a vehicle, I have insurance right now on a vehicle that's around $40,000, and the insurance is I want to say about $4,000 or $5,000 annually, and that is a Cadillac policy. You know, it's a $500 deductible, and then it covers everything, basically unlimited. So it's very inexpensive here to have insurance. And I guess that gets into the liability stuff a little bit. You are criminally liable here for hurting people. So you have to basically make financial amends if you're going to if somebody dies, or if you seriously injure somebody, or you could end up in jail. So something to be aware of, that that can cost you money, but much smaller amounts of money. I mean, I know personally situations where somebody has died and in the car, you know, in a car accident, and the family, basically the judge will say to the family, like, how much do you want, type of thing. Or I don't even know if it's the judge. I guess it's probably settled outside of court. But the family will come up with a number, and if you can come up with that number, then you're good. And if you cannot, then you will end up, you know, going to jail for the crime. So
I wonder if you actually go to jail as an expat, or if there's a way around that.
yeah, that I don't know, but I've seen
we don't have an instance
Right.
that I know of
No,
where that's
gone to
that's
jail.
happening. But it is to say, like, if you get into a fender bender, or you get into an accident here, you'll see people flee, right? Because they don't they don't want to pay that money to you, because you're just gonna have to try to settle it in a civil way with that person right there, and like try to evaluate, and hopefully they can give you the money, or you drive with them to the bank and have them transfer. Like, it's like that, because there's no
Basically,
insurance.
yeah.
Well,
A lot of
nobody's
people
a
don't
strong
have it.
word. A lot of people here don't have insurance.
Very
I would say,
few, yeah, very
I would
few.
say very few have insurance. So that is a risk driving in Ecuador, although it is liberating. It's a beautiful country, lots to explore. Definitely highly recommended to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, for me, it's one of the things I really love here, is that there aren't all those rules and regulations. You're working stuff out human to human. And that includes things like, you know, major car wrecks. You know, you're having to work that out with the person you injured, if you injured someone, or, you know, or if you got injured, or, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, it's a very human culture and society. Obviously, the government can and will get involved if they need to in those situations, but ideally, and everybody understands this, ideally, you know, you're working things out outside of the system, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you look at it this way, you're not paying any money, and you're probably not going to get into a wreck. The odds are pretty low. But if you do, and you can strike a deal where you can make some monthly payments over a period of time, that's like having insurance. So you're actually going to save money over time. So don't think of it as a huge, like, oh, if I get into a wreck, I'm going to pay all this money. I mean, look, it's probably not going to be your fault, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've always been surprised because the roads are very windy here. There's a lot of blind curves. There are a lot of people driving back and forth, right? I'm surprised how few accidents.
There really
I've
are.
seen.
Angels work overtime in Ecuador.
Yeah, and people are good on the brake. They're ready to brake if they need to. I think they're you know.
No, that struck me too. I mean, you got kids on the side of the road walking home
Right.
from school. There's you know, the shoulder is this big.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got curves, multiple people passing.
Cows,
Cows,
dogs, everything. Yeah.
Which, by the way, people are liable for that. I mean, if you get in a car wreck and hit someone's cow, the person that owns the cow is liable for your injuries or your car or whatever it is. And they would have to settle with you or get arrested and go to jail.
Interesting.
Get your cows off of the highway.
Yeah. I mean, you'll pass donkeys carrying sugarcane all the time. You'll pass people driving, oxen, like a herd, right? Like, you'll pass 150 cows
All the time.
From time to time.
Yeah. I mean, there's not too many pictures you can take where you'll see, a brand new Range Rover, BMW, and Vilcabamba with, people carrying stuff on their head, like a big bag of grain, followed by a donkey, a horse, everything all in one shot. It's great. It's a nice mix. The old and the new here.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It is funny.
What's next?
So driver's license. So you can drive here without an Ecuadorian license for 6 months. I don't think that rule has changed. You can drive here without an Ecuadorian license for 6 months. At that point, you're supposed to carry your passport on you, so that you can prove that you're within 6 months. None of these things are strictly enforced, of course. And people who have driven for years without getting an Ecuadorian license, we're not recommending that, but you probably could get away with that, and law enforcement here is pretty open to taking small amounts of favor to let you get off with just about anything.
So like what, $5 a favor, $10 a favor, 20 tops here and there?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are. I think on the coast, it's so common. It's usually like 2 or 5. I think here it's more like 10 or 20 usually. But
it doesn't happen here. The favors aren't requested in Loja, between Loja and Vilcabamba, like ever. I've never been in a situation between here and Vilcabamba where I've had to give a bribe. Although I am talking only in English. I'm sorry, no Nintendo. I'm sorry, no Nintendo. And then
you don't play any Nintendo.
They're like, all right, let me through.
Yeah.
I will say that most people that I've heard of that are trying to just drive in Ecuador but not get the Ecuadorian driver's license, because you do have to pass a Spanish written test, a Spanish drive test. There are some things you have to do. You have to study, right? And it's all in Spanish. You have to speak in Spanish, right? So that's a deterrent for some people to get a driver's license here. So an alternative is a AAA international driver's license, which I think some people are saying that they just don't know what to think of on the road. So when you present it, there's this portion in Spanish so they can read it, but they never really read it from what I understand. They just let you through. So international driver's licenses from AAA are also an option, some people say.
Yeah, I mean, legally that doesn't work.
That's
but
not legally,
but right,
yes.
for all intents and purposes, most of the time that's going to be completely fine.
Not legal. Do you think legal? No, not legal. I'm just saying some people say that's the best option versus just driving around like with nothing or.
Sure. But just to clarify too on the test, I mean, I took the test when I didn't speak Spanish. We've helped lots of clients who've taken the test not speaking Spanish. They have a question bank and practice tests. And so you do that for several hours, like let's say 1 hour 3 times or something. And you've then seen all the questions repetitively to the point that they're all memorized. And so that's how I took the test. I think I got you have to get at least, I think, a 17 out of 20, or that's how it used to be, or 16 out of 20. I think I missed 1 or I missed 2 questions out of the 20. I didn't speak a word of Spanish at that time. And so it's very doable, and, we can help you with that as well. All right. Carl, I know you're up against it time-wise. Do we want to jump into morality, or do we want to call it a day? Utilities, infrastructure, we didn't get to that either. What do you guys think?
Let's end on morality.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's finish on that note.
Morality. What's one of the questions that we get more often than not is Ecuador more, what's the question? You had it written down.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, has Ecuador maintained its morality more than the West is sort of the setup.
Yeah, I would say so.
In general, for sure. Traditional values are way more, common.
Yeah.
You see them out on Sundays with their families. And we've talked about this before, but, family-centered, just having decent, good fun for their fun extracurricular activities. You don't see a lot of drugs,
No.
and so I think that just leads overall to better morality, from specifically where I came from in the States. So it was like everybody's going off the deep end, kind of like what's happening all around me. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I mean, it's interesting. You might, I don't know if I should say this. You might talk to some expats that will, that automatically will not trust Ecuadorians, kind of thinking Ecuadorians are maybe more likely to lie to you and that kind of thing. And that's sort of what people say. I think everyone's got different experiences, but I think that's definitely a wrong way to look at it. I think there are plenty of very honorable, honest Ecuadorians. Most of the ones that I interact with are like that. But I think if you talk to other expats, they'll say, like, typically, expats, if you give your word means something. Maybe Ecuadorians is not so much. But I also think there's a difference between, countryside folks, city folks. There's different things like that. But overall, I think definitely the people here have more traditional values. They look at you in the eyes, they shake your hand, they give you their word. Especially the older generation.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll just say it. Like, I think lying, stealing, and cheating here is probably like the three things that you could characterize if you were gonna characterize an Ecuadorian for like their morality or like their failings or something, where maybe like they haven't given themselves over to violent crime, like in so many cities of the States where murder rates are going through the roof. They're not rolling around with guns and everybody's beating each other up and stabbing each other, and all of these reports I hear from the States. Wow. But in Ecuador, yeah, there's some failings in that way to where you might not trust their word here in Ecuador, and they might steal your phone if you leave it in your car and go run in for a coconut and come because your windows were down. You come back and your phone might not be there. They're opportunists here, loosely speaking, not everyone, of course, but I'm just saying, like, those types of things can happen here. But the safety of Vilcabamba and Loja province in particular, I mean, everybody walks around, children, women walk around freely without fear in both Loja, in the downtown area, the city. It's safe, it's secure. Same with Vilcabamba. So, like, to me, that does say something that speaks pretty loudly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to me, it's like both things are true, right? Culturally, I agree. I think that, petty theft is more common here than it is where I come from. People having a little bit looser relationship to the truth is more than where I come from. So there's some things like that, and that's to me, that's sort of the underbelly of Latin American culture, and absolutely not everybody, not even close to everybody, but it's just probably a higher percentage, right? That's all we're talking about. And then the other side of that is equally as true, right? It is a culture that has maintained traditional and family values, but for real. Kids live at home until marriage most of the time. Marriage still means something here. People care about their family, their friends, their parents. There's no homeless, there's no elderly who are not cared for. There's multiple generations in the same house. Families hang out together, they stay together. There's no drug cultures to speak of in Ecuador. There's no graffiti. Like there's no such thing as graffiti, in this region anyhow. So yeah, I mean, morally speaking in general, I think it's much better. Does it have a few things that are a little bit of an underbelly in a certain way that you sort of just have to adjust to and say, okay, when I'm talking to people, when they're communicating this way, it kind of means that, and when they're communicating that way, it kind of means this, and sure, absolutely. But as Ryan pointed out, the violent crime is practically zero. Now again, we're talking about this region. Guayaquil's a dangerous city. There's areas that are not, wouldn't be characterized the way that we're talking. But certainly in this region, those things are completely true. And it gets into the culture in general, right? People are kind, they're helpful, they will do just about anything for you. They're very community oriented. So, when someone in the community needs help, everybody's there helping. When somebody breaks down on this, side of the road, people are stopping, they're asking what you need, they're trying to help you. I mean, I've had just miracle situations in Ecuador where it was like, you mentioned angels before. That's what it felt like. It felt like this angel had just showed up to like give me 8 hours of their day, to get me out of this disastrous situation, expecting nothing in return, having no expectation of anything. And in fact, I've had situations like that where I'm trying to give money at the end. They're like, no, I have to like fight with them to be like, no, you're taking this money. Like, I'm not taking all of this time and effort and everything else for you for free. People still give gifts to one another. I mean, I've had how many people over the years who have just brought me cheese or brought me a bottle of something or brought me,
something they've made. Like,
something.
We get things for our daughter that we have a 10-month-old, and our house cleaner's daughter, who's like 16, made something for Addie. It's like, well, she didn't have to do that. She's in high school. She probably had other things to do, but like the youth is, they haven't given themselves over to just nonsense, and they're still doing whatever. I think it's like a little sweater or something that she quilted for my daughter, and that we've met a couple times. So.
I mean, you guys have, I used to have this experience all the time when I'd walk properties. I mean, you can't walk out of a property without, having this many fruits in your hand that the owner is very proudly just picking, giving you, right? If you go to a property with somebody, you're not getting out of there without sitting down in the house at the end, and they're feeding you, and they're giving you drinks, and they're giving you, that's just the culture here. So, I mean, I remember the first rental contract we signed in Loja, and this is in the city. And this is with this is in the city, and we're sitting there signing the rental contract for the office that we rented. This is like 2013. And when we finish, the guy breaks out the Johnny Walker Black, and he, brings out the glasses, and he pours us all a drink, and then pours us another one, and we sat there for a significant period of time drinking, for Ecuador, expensive whiskey, with this guy. And this is just the culture. Relationships matter, people matter. It's a human culture, and to me, those are values, right? To me, that ties in very much to values. So I know you got to go. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think that's good. Covered a couple topics here. Again, we do appreciate you guys sticking with us to the end here. If you've made it this far, what should we have them type in the comments so that everybody knows they made it to the end?
Your experiences with Latin American culture, your questions about Latin American culture. What do you think? Has Ecuador, has Latin America? What do you want to know about? All right, I'm butchering this. Carl, save me.
Well, if you guys have any questions, honestly, we love answering questions. We did that a little bit today. Please feel free to write them in the comment. We'll be happy to make another episode to answer those questions.
Okay, so what I meant to say is if you've made it this far, in the comment section, type epic views. You can type whatever you want after that, but that means that you're in the I Watched to the End club, and we appreciate you. So anyways, again, like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.